Okay, today we are making a double pinch pot. Now you're going to be doing a project with this at some point, but I'll make sure that you guys have access to this for whatever you need a double pinch for. What I have here, me trying to get on the stool, is 2 pinch pots. When you make a double pinch pot, you have to think about what you're going to be doing later. So we want to make 2 pinch pots. Those are going to combine together like an egg, and that's going to be used for a form later. You have to think in half how big you want these pieces to be that are going to make that egg shape. We want to make sure that they try and match up as well. So I have my 2 pinch pots here. One is smooth more than the other. For one of the projects, we're going to need to smooth the inside, so you might want to smooth a little bit before we put these together. Now, one is flimsy, one's a little less flimsy, but I want to take precautions so it doesn't collapse on itself. I'm going to take some newspaper and stuff them. So again, we've made our pinch pots. I did not smooth or trim that one. This one was smoothed and trimmed. Doesn't have to be. If it's really uneven, you might want to trim it a little bit. So I'm going to take newspaper and stuff these guys. Good idea to kind of rip them in pieces, because sometimes a big piece of it's not going to want to sit in there. And you want to fill it so it's up to the top of the pinch pot when you push it down. Okay? See? That's pretty good. Okay. All right. So we stuffed our pinch pots. Now, we want to put these 2 guys together. You can't just stick them together. We have to do something called scoring and slipping. Scoring is putting marks in our clay, like that roughs up the surface of the clay. So instead of it just being 2 pieces we stick together that are flat and eventually will peel away, we have score marks on both sides, so those score marks will link together and hold on. The other thing we use is called slip. Slip is clay mud. Now, I'm not going to be sending you guys a full container of slip or anything. Technically, you don't need slip. A lot of teachers teach without slip. They just use water. You can try water. That's fine. I like to make a little of my own slip. What I'll do is I'll take a piece of clay, dip it in water, and just kind of like do this. And then I'll use that piece of clay to kind of smear where I need slip. Slip is going to go on one side. Score marks are going to go on both. You don't want too much slip because then it gets slippery. So now we need to make our score marks. Handy dandy carving tool. Pointy triangle side. And we're going to tap, 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 tap all the way around. Now, you do not want to tap so hard that you cut through it. Slice it. You also don't want to space your score marks out too much because then they're not going to do anything for you. So you can see I'm kind of tapping really quickly here. Some people are like super perfect with their things and crossing them. No, you just need to basically rough up the edge. No slicing, no. Just tapping. Okay, score marks, score marks. Now we need our slip. I'll take my handy dandy little slip nubbin. I don't know what to call it. Smear, smear, smear. And I'm going to smear this on one side. If it's not smearing well, I'll add a little more water. You can see it's creating a little bit of mud on the edge. Again, slip is just like clay mud, but it also acts as a clay glue. We're going to take these 2 pieces and we're going to wiggle them together. By wiggling them just slightly, the score marks will sit next to each other and kind of do that. Okay. Doesn't have to be a perfect matchup because we're going to fill in gaps next. Now, just score marks is not enough to make something stay together. When clay dries, this is important comment coming up. This is important. Please pay attention. Important. When clay dries, it shrinks about 10%. So we need to make sure when clay is shrinking, it stays together. When it tries to shrink and pull away, if it doesn't, it'll shrink and pop off. So don't think later on when you're making sculptures, you're like, oh, I could just put this little bunny tail on. It'll stick just fine. I'll smudge it in a little. Nope, that sucker's going to pop right off later when it dries. So please make sure that you are scoring and slipping and blending. Blending is what's going to happen a little bit in this next step. So what I want to do, fill in the gap. I got a big gap here. And I want to make it smooth and seamless. So I'm going to take a piece of clay to wrap around here. But if I'm going to attach one piece of clay to another, I need to score and slip. So I'm going to put score marks all the way around this seam. We're going to be smoothing around this, so don't worry if they're kind of like all over the place. Now, right now, I'm slicing a little bit. You can tap, tap, tap. I don't want you slicing the top edge of things. Okay, score marks. Now, I'm going to add something to the outside that's going to fill in that gap. You need an extra piece of clay. You're going to need a cup of water. This clay for this part needs to be very soft. If it's not, this step will not work. And in the future, when you do this next method of construction, you need to make sure you're doing it right, because you're going to be using it for other things too. Just like we use pinch for things, now we're going to use something called a coil. This is a coil. It has score marks on it already. I prepped some ahead of time. But we need to make sure when we're rolling our coil that it's flexible. So I'm going to dunk it in water, like that, and I am going to mush that water into the clay, back and forth. It's going to be gross at first. Have fun with it. I mean, don't like make a huge mess or anything, which is kind of impossible, but you do you. And you notice that gross sticky noise is stopping. That means the clay has absorbed the water and it's not as sticky. Now what I want to do is take that clay and I'm going to crimp it. But you're going to notice I'm going to rotate as I crimp. Crimp, 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 crimp. The reason why I want to rotate is I want to keep it round. You are going to crimp this until it is about the thickness of your index finger. Try not to crimp too hard. Again, repetition, not pressure. Put it on the table. That is an ugly coil. We're going to make it nicer. What you want to do is take your two hands, and we're only going to use our fingers. Do not use the butt of your hand here. Is that the butt? Well, it's the bend. Whatever you want to call it. This is the butt. Don't push your coil here. What we're going to do is gently roll back and forth, keeping our fingers spread. Repetition, not pressure. You can see I'm starting from the center, working my way out. Gentle pressure. All the way back and forth. If I press too hard, it's going to squish, or it's going to start to get flat. For this step, it's not that big of a deal, but in the future, when you want a nice round coil for coil pots, yes, we'll be doing coil pots, you do not want to have to worry about redoing a coil. All right, so it's time for score marks, because we have to score both sides. Slip one side. So again, rule of thumb, score both, slip one, blend. We're getting to the blending part. Not taking as much time for coils as I need. So I'm going to take this clay with the slip, put it on my coil. Okay, now I'm going to take that, place it around my double pinch, break it off where it meets. Now it looks like a fat Saturn. It's not going to stay like that. What we're going to do is take our other hand, hold it sideways. We want to blend that coil in without crushing it. So you can see I put the score marks facing each other. So what I'm going to do is take my thumbs and gently drag back and forth. Just dragging the surface of that coil around the object. If you blend it too much, then what was the point of putting it on in the first place? Okay, now I have that blended, and I want to get it to blend a little bit more so you can gently roll your project on the table. Okay, now we're really going to blend it with a metal rib, just like you did the pinch pots. You're not just going to go horizontally with this. You're going to go vertically as well. Because I have that newspaper in there, it's helping to keep its shape. And I'm going to do that all the way around until I'm done smoothing it. Then the next step, you would shape it on the table for whatever use you're going to have. Don't forget, whenever you use a double pinch, it must have a hole somewhere so it doesn't explode, because right now this is basically a kiln bomb. That's double pinch.